All right, thanks for coming along, everyone. Welcome. So, yeah, shall we be doing a bit of a dive into display and social across the paid landscape? It's just myself here today, so if there's any questions, just pop them straight into the question and answer section, and I'll just answer them live as they come in. Just a quick agenda. So, bit of housekeeping, and then we'll just run through the digital landscape as it applies to display and social, and then just have a quick chat about the sort of benefits of the channels, and then look a bit deeper into display, especially across Google Ads and then programmatic, the issues that are sort of facing the channel in the present day. For paid social, just do a quick introduction, and then look mainly at Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, as they have the sort of highest user bases in Australia. And then we'll sort of wrap up with what I call sort of 3R strategies, the I guess most common approaches that you can take using these sort of full funnel channels. But just looking at the housekeeping. So this webinar will be available after this presentation is finished. I think Gary will send through a link later on this week. When you get that deck through, we'll have sources for all of the sort of links and figures that we're using. And again, if there's any questions at any point, just use the Q&A section, or if you've got account-specific questions, just contact your account manager. Just a quick one about me. So I'm the Director of Performance Analytics here at Indago. I've been in digital marketing for around 6 years now. University didn't actually study marketing, but I did study psychology and statistics, which has been very helpful with the performance analytics especially. I have worked at independent and globally owned agencies, so I've sort of got a good view of sort of, I guess, the two approaches that can be taken depending on where you are in the pecking order. And I was lucky enough to win the Google Performance Honours Award at the start of this year and last year, getting a trip to Mountain View with Google and around 30 other digital marketers from Australia and New Zealand. In terms of us, I'm sure most people here have seen these slides a few times, but just to run through, we have run training for a number of industry bodies, including Google Squared Online. So we've actually been taken by Google to train Google on sort of some of their own products, which is a pretty big blessing. We've also done training for other digital marketing companies such as Shape Proximity, as well as universities across Macquarie, UCID, UTS, and we've also had our own university cadetship program called Digital Cadets. But just jumping into the digital landscape. So again, I feel most people here have probably seen these slides a few times, but just to recap, digital as an advertising medium has been growing quite steadily each year, which has now broken the 50% mark in terms of Australian investment. Television's relatively steady, print's dropping back, as I think you'd almost expect. Radio outdoor cinema has stayed pretty static. And in terms of display, so what's classified here as general display has been sort of on the up and up for most of this decade, I guess, starting at 28% of the share in Australia, moving up to 37% by 2019. All still growing. General display in 2019 was 3.5 billion, which rose a full 5%. And I think we were sort of talking before, search is the current king of the digital coup, but looking at IAB and PwC, their sort of growth forecast for display is that it will ultimately, be the biggest player within Australia. So these figures here in terms of millions of dollars spent, Australian dollars. I think this was obviously made in 2019 before COVID hit, and I think there has been a bit of a stumble this year for display, as a lot of those I guess prospecting budgets have been cut. But even then, the expectation is by 2023, there'll be nearly 2,000 million in excess of search, while the categories that continues to grow. So with all this investment and growing investment, I guess the sort of question is, well, why is all this money coming into display and social? This was talked previously about how search marketing in particular and SEO have a big impact on the bottom of the funnel, where users are familiar with the product, they've got that pre-existing intent, but display and social sort of has this advantage that they can really cover the full scale of the customer journey. They can be an introductory channel where a potential customer's sort of seeing this product or this brand for the first time. They can be used as sort of reminders, just to sort of keep the awareness up of while a user's just browsing the internet or browsing a relevant sort of social feed. That, oh yeah, reminded that your company's out there. If there's a sale, if there's offers, they can be pushed to the relevant people. And then even in terms of the execution, it's a direct link to the website or a direct link to your app, whatever your final conversion point might be. So it's there to close the sale. So it really can hit every part of the user's funnel to just push them down into the end of the journey. Another interesting part is that we can really understand the role that it plays in acquisition. So we're a very acquisition-focused agency. We believe quite heavily in measurable outcomes, and the more data points that we can amass to understand what leads to a sale, the better. So sort of, I guess, traditional click-based tracking. You might user and they Google a brand and they click a paid search ad, so that gets logged into AdWords and Google Analytics. Then they Google the brand later on, they click an organic listing and they make a sale. So in Google Analytics, we're seeing the last click come through as organic, and Google Ads, we see the paid click come through, and we think, oh, paid search and organic, SEM, SEO, doing their magic again. But with this sort of post-view tracking, we can start to say, oh, well, they might not be clicking these display ads, but we're able to see when they've appeared and when they've been actually viewed by the user. So it's not just appearing on a page out of sight. It's making sure that it actually has been loaded and come into their line of sight, essentially. And what's really useful here, especially, is understanding how many touch points there can be in a user's journey. For something that's a very easy thing to sell, a jacket, one display ad might be nice because they've looked at this jacket before and then gone, oh yeah, that's right, that jacket, I'll come back and buy that. But for something with a very long user journey, a home loan, for example, just keeping the brand presence up and understanding the length that could potentially be involved in making that sale, we really start to see where the views on display are, especially since so many of these views can take place in an environment where someone might just not be in the place to click. If they've opened up a workout app, for example, they're at the gym, they're not going to click on an ad for a home loan, but just seeing down the bottom just that little reminder of HSBC or Westpac, and then when they get home, they'll see a Westpac ad on TV perhaps, and they'll connect, and it all sort of links up. So that's really a great piece of technology that helps us understand much more about our users and how we can get them to ultimately convert. A quick chat through the common metrics that will come up in this presentation. So probably the most important is going to be impressions. And again, that's the number of times the ad has been seen. We'll talk a little bit about viewability later on, but an impression isn't just an ad loading, it is an ad being seen. CPM, which is a very common buying metric for display, is the cost per 1,000 impressions. Because display ads usually have so many impressions, they don't buy on an individual impression basis, they buy on per 1,000. Then there's clicks, so that's the number of times an ad has been clicked. Cost per click, how much you pay for each click. The gross advertising spend is the cost. CTR, the percentage of The users who see your ad to go on to click, that's non-unique, so that is impressions and clicks. And then in terms of conversions, anytime conversions are mentioned, that's sort of defined as the business goal. Could be a sale, a sign up, a lead, phone call, anything in those categories. Conversion rate, the percentage of users who click through the ad who are going to convert. There would also be a view-through conversion rate, perhaps, which would be number of users who've seen the ad and go on to convert through other channels without clicking. And then a cost per conversion, so the average spend that it takes to drive a conversion. And just some quick terminology clarification. So when we're talking about creative, in this case, creative is going to be the image or the text or video used in an ad. A placement is the sort of website or app in which an ad appears, so the environment, the specific page or app. Inventory, this one's a bit of a funny one to define. I think sometimes you can probably see when a page is loaded, there's, I guess, maybe a few blank squares or rectangles around, and then all of a sudden an ad will appear in it. That space is the inventory. So there's the predefined locations on a website where ads come, and that's what's ultimately sold to advertisers, and the people who sell those are publishers. So the publishers are a company that links inventory with an ad request. So they'll have access to however much ad space on the internet, which is essentially the number of web pages times the number of users who visit them, and they're there to marry up those ad spaces with the ads that want to appear there. So jumping into display, we'll just have a quick introduction of what it is. I'm sure you've definitely seen it if you've ever taken a passing look at a website. So display advertising places ads on a website, app, or online platform. These ads appear alongside the content of the page. Clicking them will usually take you directly to an advertiser's page, lead to a specific landing page that is directly relevant to the ad. And these ads appear based around two primary targeting methods that can either be used together or in isolation. Context-based and audience-based. So context-based, we're looking at lining up the context of a website with the topic of an ad. So this could be directly related to the website's offering, or be based on the type of people who browse certain websites. So the example on the right here is caradvice.com.au. So I've navigated to the review for the Mazda CX-3. Then at the top, it's matched that up with an ad for a Mazda CX-3. So without needing like an organic link in the content of the actual website, Mazda just said, look, when someone comes on this page, we'll serve an ad for that specific car. Looks like a pretty decent review, even though it says it's a bit expensive. But it doesn't always have to be the exact context, I'm looking at car advice, buying a new car. I could be getting ads for car loans, for example, car insurance, and other things that are sort of relevant to the website that I'm browsing at the moment. The second is audience-based. So audience advertising sort of serves ads based on the available information on any given user's attributes. So these can be sort of the real-time features that are happening in the moment. So the type of mobile phone I'm on, you've likely seen it where you'll be looking at a website and it'll say, Android owners or iPhone owners, like here's an app for you, sort of thing. A lot of that information is served up just as part and parcel of browsing on a device. You've also got information, the location, the time of day, all of that can be fed in to influence what happens with the ad. You also got demographic and biographical information from logins. So Google and Facebook, they've got their sort of tags all over the internet. If you're logged in on your browser, that sort of carries over. So that's how websites can often know roughly sort of what demographic stratas you fall into, or your biographical information around age and gender, etc. Browsing history, this is quite an important one, as it can really influence what ads you're seeing in terms of Google's data. So if you've been searching for a car dealership, you're searching for car insurance, you're searching for a car seat, all of those are all steps in a journey. Tell Google that you're essentially in market for a car. None of these are 100% guaranteed, obviously, but they're all sort of placing you in audience buckets based on likelihoods and how much you fit a pattern of behavior that have been, roads that have been walked by many other people as well. There's also data collected by other companies. So on the right-hand side here, I've just got a website that's, it's providing a font, but there's a little ad in the corner for, I think it's a protein drink bottle. So at some point, I've gone to a protein website, and they've sort of identified me that way, and they're showing their ads on these unrelated websites. In terms of those types of data, there are three sort of main types. There's first-party data, which is data collected and owned by your organization. So this is where things like email subscription lists, loyalty programs, just general member information. This also applies to information you collect through tagging, so who've come to your website and you've left a cookie in their browser. Second-party data is very similar. It's usually collected by a single company, but it is shared directly with your organization. And third-party data is data generated and owned by others and vendors. So, the sort of scandalous example of this was the Cambridge Analytica Facebook debacle from a few years ago. But there's not essentially any law against collecting the data, and there's quite a few companies out there who do have these extremely large data sets to understand their consumers or their users' behaviors. And so you can use all three of these types. Google's data would be third-party data, even though it's so easy to access and essentially free to access when you're advertising on their networks. It is still ultimately generated and owned by Google. In terms of display, the bread and butter is banner ads. There's sort of a number of different, standardized sizes, helping the sort of efficient creative production. So these are what the inventory is primarily made of, because you sort of want your ad to always be at least consistent in what you produce as to how it will appear. Some of these sizes are desktop or mobile only, or at least optimized towards one of the devices. The thing is that different sizes do have higher rates of website usage. So, you're looking at 8, 9 different sizes down there, but realistically, you could get away with 2, preferably 3. The 300 by 250 and 728 by 90 will cover nearly 2/3 of all impressions. So all views of ads that happen, you add on the 160 by 600, and that's a vast majority of all impressions. So, when you sort of see this diagram, think, oh man, I've got to make ads in all these different sizes. Not really. 2 at worst, 3, and then you're pretty much done. You're going to be covering most of the inventory that's easily available. On top of, we've got dynamic remarketing. So I think, if you've ever browsed Kogan, you've probably seen quite a lot of this. They're big fans of it. This is when you go to a website and you've looked at a specific page or a specific product. Then you've gone off somewhere completely different, and a big ad's popped up saying, hey, remember that lawnmower you were looking at? We noticed you didn't buy it, which I'd like to have a look at it again. These can either be sort of a specific product, like in that example. Often carousels are used where I'll show that product and other ones you've looked at in the same session, or other similar products. Or they get bucketed into sort of group themes. So it'll sort of see that you've been looking generally at jewelry on a website. So they'll come back and show you either slides or a number of different display ads, usually for a limited amount of time, because if you haven't bought it by that point, it's unlikely that you'll buy it after another week or two. But that again depends on the value of the product itself. The other ad type is rich media. So this is a bit more complicated. I guess the cost and tech involved to get this going is a bit higher. It can be very impressive. So this example on the right here of shaking the phone to change the ad is actually quite a novel concept, and I was pretty impressed. Other than that, often just video is used, not like a YouTube video, but a sort of video within the ad image itself. There's sound, there's expanding ads. There's often, you might see a movie trailer and it says hover over the banner, and then the little screen will pop down and you'll see the full trailer, that sort of thing. So these are sort of designed to just get higher engagement, but the coding behind them is a lot more complicated. Therefore, it's just like a little bit less accessible. So that's sort of just the very quick introduction to display as a whole. At this point, we'll talk about the Google Display Network and Google Ads. So the reason we're sort of focusing individually on this is because it's by far the most accessible display option. So it's available via the Google Ads platform. It covers 2 million websites, which according to Google is 90% of the sort of available advertising internet. Extremely low tech barrier to entry. The creative requirements are really simple, just a static image or a animated GIF, which is less than 30 seconds according to their policies. You've got complete access to their third-party audiences. There's no publisher or tech fees, and they use CPC as well as CPM pricing model, which, especially in terms of CPC, means that even if you're quite new to it and you're sort of finding your feet, you won't just blow all your budget sort of getting your ads out there. So in terms of sort of a starting point, at the very least, it's very powerful, especially due to their audiences. So we do have the Google data from user online behavior. But in addition to that, you can supplement your business first-party data in terms of either remarketing or using your existing customer base to find similar or re-engage your existing audiences. So you do require a minimum of 1,000 matched members. That's matched members to be eligible to use your own data. So even if you have a list of 1,000 email addresses, they might not all be matched to Google users, and therefore you won't be able to use it. So it's best to sort of just get as many as you possibly can. So it's highly recommended to be using remarketing either positively or negatively across display. So the negation is quite an important part as well, because if you've got a product that someone's unlikely to buy twice, you do want to make sure they're not clicking on your ads, or if you're paying on CPM, especially seeing your ads, because then you're just paying for someone who's already got your product to be reminded of it. We'll just have a quick run through the Google audiences and the user audiences. The Google created audiences based on browsing information. So in-market is arguably one of their most powerful ones. So this is sort of what was spoken about before with the in-market of a car purchasing example. This is looking at all the different sites they've been visiting and how they all sort of add up into what they might be looking at buying at the moment. So some examples of credit cards, pet supplies, then get very specific, like residential properties for rent. I think there's specific car brands that you can say that they're looking for. There's also affinity audiences. So rather than sort of being in a purchasing state, these are more people who've shown consistent behavior to be into certain, I guess, interests. So foodies, sports fans, news readers, Hollywood gossip, renovation shows, all these sort of things that can be up to relevant segments of your business. Not necessarily in an immediate action way, but just in a relevancy sort of way. In addition to that, we've also got the Google created audiences based on the biographical and browsing information. So it's got the very standard ones like gender, age, income. There's parental status and home ownership. Life events can be very relevant to some advertisers. So that's things like moving house, getting married, graduating. There's relationship status, and there's education. A lot of these have been bucketed to, I guess, protect certain segments. So income especially, they've grouped the entire bottom 50%, so that the bottom 10% can't be maliciously targeted. So they do put steps in to protect groups of these audiences. In terms of what you can do with your own data, there's the user-defined audiences based on interactions with your business. So people who've been to your website, who've viewed your YouTube videos, or have used your apps. A lot of ones that can be useful here are specific page viewers or specific video viewers. converters, so people who've signed up in the past or submitted a lead form. If you're a retailer, cart abandoner can be one. I think we've probably all gone to buy something online, got into the ad cart phase, looked at the price, and then gone, oh, do I really need this? But they can often be very well targeted to complete that purchase. And there's custom match lists. You can use emails, phone numbers, or residential addresses. They're kind of useful in that order. Email has the highest match rate, phone number second, and address is, I guess, kind of like a secondary way of matching up. In addition to that, we have similar audiences. So a similar audience is when you uploaded, say, your customer match lists, you've taken your highest value customers, your top 10%, there's more than 1,000 of them. And Google said, okay, so here's all the ones we've matched, here's how they act on the internet, and here's a list of people who act very similarly. So this is very useful in sort of your target. You're targeting a lot wider while trying to retain relevance, not necessarily through factors that you may necessarily understand, but sort of using Google's machine learning to see who acts similarly to your existing customers. Something you can do through Google Ads pretty good is kind of validate whether some of these in-market audiences are as relevant to your business as they may seem. So this example we've got here is from one of our home security clients. And what we've got is, we've looked at the all visitors in Google Analytics in the top left. So this is everyone who's come to the website. And the benchmark for comparison in the top is just everyone in Australia. So in the table here, we've got the list of in-market audiences and then the index. So the index signifies how much the visitors to our website over-index into these in-market audiences. And as it should be, people who are interested in, or people who are in market for home security are 6.7 times more likely to be in that group when they're on our website versus Australia in general. Some other ones that do seem, relevant semantically, people who are looking at houses for sale and also pre-owned houses for sale over-index more when they're looking at home security. I guess interestingly, things like vacuums and bicycles and accessories and tools. So people who are, I guess, thinking about their home at the moment, mortgages, home purchase loans, all of these, or most of these seem relevant, but mathematically have been shown to be more relevant. We've also got the sizes of these in-market audiences on the right, how sort of affect the overall display volume coming through. Something a bit more recent that's also extremely powerful for GDM is the introduction of custom audiences. So all the in-market audiences and things I've mentioned so far have been built from Google. So they've categorized them. They've sort of, I guess, seen what buckets they wanted to create or what buckets have seemed logical to create based on behavior. But what they've now given us the ability to do is create our own custom in-market audiences based on either keywords that are being searched for on Google, people who have been browsing certain websites or websites of a certain category, people who've been using apps of a certain category, or people who have been visiting actual physical locations. So for example, if we were looking to say a health supplement, a diet shake, for example, we could say, okay, well, people who've been looking for exercise plans, been Googling those recently, maybe people who have been going to bodybuilding.com or websites similar to that, people have been using apps like the fitness workout trainer, or even just people who've been going to gyms. You can use any of these in any combination, as long as you're using at least one of them. And Google will take all that sort of information on board, form an audience out of it, and then you'll be able to load that in. We'll notice that it's not completely specific, so it's not just people who went to this website and only this website. It is still broad enough to sort of all be in general categories. Google does have a sort of interest in keeping too much personalization out of it, and you won't be able to use certain websites like bankruptcy or other things that imply sort of negative life status, because that's again seen as a bit malicious. And but overall, like it's actually a very powerful tool that gives us the ability to harness Google's data for ourselves, really. Beyond audiences, on GDN we do have the context targeting. So there's sort of three measures of targeting that can be used in parallel on GDN or individually. Keyword, so content. Topic, which is the placement category or the category of the website. And then the placement itself, so the actual site or the actual app. So with these sort of three things, we can use them depending on what sort of scope we want our account to be built out on. If we're looking at keywords, we're looking at a much higher volume but potentially cheaper cost. Placement, much tighter control but potentially higher cost. So if we're looking for yoga, so just keyword yoga poses is going to be websites that have yoga poses essentially written in their content. Yoga and Pilates as a topic are websites that Google has categorized such, so that the topics are pre-made. And Google has categorized virtually everything within its own. Anything that can appear on Google has been categorized. And then placement is using a specific website itself. So we could aim to appear on loveyoga.com.au. If we're saying yoga mats, for example. If loveyoga.com.au doesn't have a huge amount of competition, then they'll be quite cheap. But if we were to say Sydney Morning Herald, that would probably be a very expensive placement because there's a lot of competition based on the traffic that website sees. So that's sort of how you can use GDN's or the Google Display Network's data to bolster your targeting capabilities. In terms of creative, I sort of mentioned that the sort of previous standard ad sizes were the bread and butter. What Google Ads and the GDN have done is create these responsive display ads. So these are automatically assembled using text and images that you provide. They'll usually be a few sizes of image, a number of headlines, some descriptions, a logo, and what they've done is these can adapt to all of those standard ad sizes that we saw earlier. So on the right here is all the different ways that essentially the same few headlines and text and images can be assembled. And what this does is it tests all the different combinations of images and text that you've given it to optimize through to a highest click-through rate or conversion rate. So depending on how many you give it, I think the optimum is 5 headlines and 5 images from memory, and it will just keep on cycling those through until it finds the best combinations, and then you sub out or substitute the weaker ones with better ones, and so on and so forth until you're really optimizing your creative. GDN also has the ability to target Gmail inboxes. So this is using the standard targeting option before, the keywords and the audiences. It uses a cost per click model, so you'll pay when the email is opened, not when someone clicks through to your website. It does have pre-existing template options, which is quite useful. So there is a custom HTML option if you had a coder on hand and wanted to make a very fancy sort of email upon opening, but there's also just single image with description and link, or a sort of catalog template that means you can put multiple products in there quite easily. Again, it's in Google's interest to make this as easy as possible for users. And yeah, so these appear in the promotions Gmail tab, so they do appear in the sort of environment alongside other ads, so it's not too invasive, and the people that are clicking through to promotions are usually more willing to engage with the ads themselves. There's also quite a new format called Discovery. So this was in beta last year and has been made public this year. It doesn't actually use the Google Display Network technically, but it is run through Google Ads, so it sort of falls under Google Ads display. It uses this new sort of news feed that mainly appears on either Chrome in mobile or on some Android devices called Discovery. There's Gmail and YouTube placements. So when you put your creative in here, it'll automatically make those Gmail ads, and can also put ads into the YouTube scrolling feed. So it's extremely cheap at the moment due to its relative newness, and is usually quite engaged. The creative's quite good. It's when people are scrolling, so it's sort of the closest that Google's gotten to Facebook style ads, because they are designed to be feed-based rather than just sort of appearing on the sides of websites. So currently they're a great option for anyone who's sort of dipping their toes into display, but I suspect over the next 12 months the price and competition will rise quite a lot. Just a quick one on Google policy. So there's a number of sort of, I guess, rules around what can and cannot go on the Google Display Network. Most of these, or some of these, are relevant to all, but all networks. But GDN specifically has a lot of things that stop, I guess, fraudulent or misleading ads appearing. So we've got sort of fake messages. What's good about these examples is they kind of show the same business, but with the acceptable and no acceptable ad types. So a dating ad is perfectly acceptable, but on the left we see like, oh, try this out. It's got all the images, but on the right it's a sort of fake message. Do you accept this chat invitation? This one down here has a misleading cursor, so you can't have things in your ads that sort of imply that the cursor's there for the user. Any sort of misleading antivirus alert, similar to the message ad. Fake cross button to try and trick you into try to close the ad, but that gets the click. The PC booster on the left, kind of makes sense, but on the right it says download now or play now, neither of which are contextualized. You don't actually know what you're going to be downloading or playing. These are often on websites that provide videos or downloads just to trick the user into interacting with the ad. And sort of fake interactivity, so the idea that you can either skip the ad or see other things on the slideshow. So these are all sort of designed to cut down on either bad user experiences or on people using ads to get clicks that they don't deserve. So the second type of display we're discussing is programmatic. Hard one to define. So in the simplest of terms, programmatic is the use of automation in the buying and selling of media. So in this specific case, this is programmatic display. Currently, 44% of all advertising on content sites is bought programmatically in Australia. The majority of this is auction-based. So this is in comparison to the sort of traditional insertion order process of buying inventory. So it's not to do with like calling up and getting an IO and having the big discussion. That said, there are some private marketplaces that are invite only. So the publishers, so they're not publicly available. You actually have to have the publisher invite you specifically. There is also traditional style selling, so spot buying, via the programmatic, I guess, approach that doesn't use the bidding process, but by and large it's auction based and it's public. So just saying, oh, automation, it sounds pretty simple, but unfortunately it's not. This sort of diagram always helps sort of show how this managed to be such a confusing process for a while. There's so many acronyms, every arrow points to every other point in the diagram. In terms of anyone who's not familiar with the way it all works, it's a bit of a nightmare to navigate. So in terms of the simplified manner, we've got the publisher of the website, and what they do is they've made a inventory on a website available. They've got their website and they've said, here's the spots for the ads. That communicates to what's called an SSP. So that's the supply side platform. So that assesses bids and publishes a chosen ad. So where do those bids and ads come from? So on the right, we've got the advertiser and the agency. So they have details about their ad targets, who they want to be reaching. they put all that information into the DSP, the demand side platform. So the demand side platform creates a bid for the inventory, sort of says how much they're willing to pay to be appearing in any given placement or within the inventory. And the SSP, the DSP talk to each other, evaluate which bid's best for the publisher, and then sort of gets the ad off the DSP, sends it through the website. Now this all happens instantaneously. This is sort of fraction of a second stuff. And it happens, God knows how many millions of times a day. So it's all actually quite impressive technology in terms of the real-time bidding. So if you look at a process from the user's perspective, user visits the website talks to the SSP takes that user's information, makes it available, or the advertiser is placing a bid. Highest bid wins the ad appears on the site, and hopefully the user clicks it or at least pays attention to it. This is a similar model to how it works in GDN, except any given website can communicate with however many SSPs, which in turn can communicate with however many DSPs. So it's all, there's quite a lot of moving parts involved. In comparison to the real-time bidding, there is also direct buying, which is a bit simpler. So that's the advertiser or agency goes straight to the programmatic direct vendor, which is also a DSP, but in this case, it's not there to do bids. It's just there to talk directly to an ad server. They've said, look, we want to have our ads appear on this website. We'll pay you this much for it. Once that sort of is agreed upon, then it goes straight through to those orders. So one way that these type of buys happen is with homepage takeovers. Very similar to the sort of contextual style GDN placement. We've sort of got investing.com, and then all over the website here is CMC markets. So there'd be a stockbroking and CFD trading companies. They've said, look, this is an extremely high value audience coming to this website for us. So we just want to pay you X amount of dollars for X amount of impressions on this site. That's all been agreed upon, and it's gone straight through. Again, this is really just to sort of demonstrate just how many players are involved here. Even beyond the SSPs and DMPs, there's data partners, retargeting abilities, industry measurement to validate, and all of this generates cost. And this is why I think programmatic compared to GDN in terms of how it starts. So GDN is not free to use. Obviously you're paying for the ads, but when you start getting deep into programmatic, you end up sort of losing, not death by 1,000 cuts, but spot more money on all of these different aspects of the technology that become necessary just to sort of be a player in the market. Which once you're big enough, it's fine, but for smaller and medium-sized companies, GDN is definitely the best way to be starting. Some of the issues across GDN, and I sort of alluded to it before with the fake clicks on ads. Click fraud is actually quite a significant problem in Australia. We're actually the third highest in the world for invalid traffic. This is from a study last year by Pixelate. And what this click fraud essentially is people creating either fake apps or fake websites and having ads appear on them. And then they'll simulate a click or an impression, either through a bot or through a click farm, which is basically just people continuously clicking on the same ads, on ads on the same website. And then the owners of that website will receive the advertising money, and the advertiser will get a fake click. There's a lot being done to combat this in terms of the publishers, because it's as soon as these stats start coming out, people start to pull away from display a bit. Google very regularly gives out refunds across the GDN network for when they detect invalid traffic. Other publishers aren't quite as lucky to sort of have the coffers that Google does, but generally speaking, yeah, Australia does cop quite a lot of the invalid traffic relative to other, especially English-speaking nations. It's worth around, I think the fraud ultimately is about $116 million each year. It did drop in 2019, so hopefully some of the practices being put in place to stop it keep it down as we sort of go into the 2020s. Viewability as well. So this is data from the IAB. So basically an impression is viewable, so valid, if at least 50% of the ad is on screen for at least 1 second. So that's a minimum benchmark standard. That's a pretty common benchmark. Some publishers have a higher rate. And in terms of some publishers, so like News Corp, they run a 99.5% viewability rate for their ads. So if you buy some of their inventory, they'll say, you know, your ad is definitely going to show. So as soon as your ad is loaded, it'll be viewable. And there's sort of the measurement to verify your ads are viewable within the platforms themselves, or you can pay to have a third-party company come in and verify whether they are being properly viewed. Programmatic has a lower viewability rate than Publisher Direct. Publishers are a lot better at guaranteeing their own inventory than the sort of auction system of programmatic. But ultimately, you know, a significant amount of inventory in Australia is not viewable, but doesn't actually go on to be seen. Which, if you're not paying for it, it doesn't matter, but it does mean that the amount of space that is often claimed to be out there isn't realistically out there. The problem is oversaturation. This is a screenshot I took of the Daily Mail last year because it just sort of stuck with me how much was going on. You know, without having moved anywhere on the page, there's sort of one video in the bottom right, banner ad down the side, banner ad here, another search box ad, and ad at the top of the article and ad to the left. And it's almost hard to read the article, let alone focus on any of these ads. So when you're appearing in these really dense environments, it can be a bit questionable how much people are actually able to sort of pay attention to your ads. On top of that, there's an issue of brand safety. So this is pretty important for any ads that may be sort of, I guess, caught in negative light. So obviously these are accidents. You know, Pedestrian has an article about an 11-year-old boy who got swept into a storm drain and drowned, and then unfortunately Visa has a very large ad saying with waterproof wearables and a person falling underwater. Content exclusions are usually a must-have. I don't know how Visa sort of didn't get that in there at this time, but avoiding sort of tragic news, hate speech, you know, controversial news, that sort of thing. These are usually built into publishing systems to avoid this exact kind of scenario. On top of that, you can exclude placements. So there are specific websites that will regularly cover topics that you just don't want your ads to appear against. I remember a few years ago we had a number of people on Twitter, I think, contact one of our clients and say that they were upset because their ads were appearing on a far-right news website in the US. As we've sort of covered here, that was most likely because it was audience-based, so the ads were following them, but it wasn't a direct decision to appear on those sites by our client, but they were saying, you know, can you block them and blacklist them and make sure your ads aren't appearing there? So some people can take where your ads appear quite seriously. There are blacklists and exclusion lists available to manually upload into your either GDN or into what ad exchange you're using for programmatic, just to really make sure you're avoiding sort of unsavory or controversial even websites. So that's display. Jumping to paid social. So similar sort of thing. We're looking at the sort of the prospecting. So social media in Australia as of January 2020 all in all, there's 18 million active social media users. It's around 71% of the population, and it's still growing. It grew 4.3%, or 735,000 year on year from 2019 to 2020. And nearly all of them are accessing via mobile. So that's always just something to keep in mind when you're looking at creative, is that nearly everyone is using their phone, not their phone 100% of the time, but at some point will be using their phone to access social media. So in terms of both the ads that are appearing on the social network, you've also got to consider your website and your landing page especially. There's nothing worse than clicking on a sort of mobile ad and getting directed to a desktop only site and having to sort of fumble around everywhere. Like they'll be hitting the back button as possible. So looking within Australia, Facebook is by far the dominant engine. So I think this is Facebook and Instagram as a whole, because we're looking at ad spend here, and they essentially go through both. LinkedIn, Snapchat, and Twitter sort of take up the roughly equal shares after that, and then other is 5%. This is all for 2019, so before the, I guess, rise of TikTok, which has been making a massive market push recently. Interestingly enough, I think Snapchat, Twitter, and TikTok all have roughly the same amount of users in Australia at the moment, around 6 million each. So I'll be interested to see how the, I guess, ad investment goes in that channel over the next 12 months. In terms of where the overall info is going. Oh, yeah. So Steve just asked, is Instagram included in the Facebook ad spend data? Yeah. So that's just the, I guess, the Facebook platform investment, which does include Instagram. In terms of overall, over the coming years, so this has hypothetically been adjusted for the impact of COVID-19. You can sort of see 2020 is very flat compared to all the other improvements year on year, but the market is poised to grow quite heavily. To slow down a little bit in the sort of 2022 to 2024. But what's interesting is you can sort of see that desktop is essentially the same size, no matter what year it is, and mobile is really the platform that's growing, which is, I guess, unsurprising given how much it is. The users are growing, but it's still growing, but the mobile penetration is nearly 100%. And you may be thinking, oh, well, look, my business has a Facebook page. You know, we've got likes and followers. We put out content. We've got Instagram follows. Why should I be paying to reach these people? Unfortunately, the sort of organic reach of Facebook is dead. They have been saying sort of the death of organic for a very long time, and every few years it gets a little worse. The nail gets put in the coffin. So back in 2012, brands could expect their free posts to reach around 16% of their users, which in and of itself doesn't even seem that high. That is, of course, accounting for people who aren't coming onto Facebook anymore, that sort of thing. But 16% isn't huge to start with. By 2014, algorithm changes meant that organic reach dropped to 6.5%. By 2016, pages are reaching an average of 2% of their user base with their free posts. 2018, there's another algorithm change aimed at proliferating quote-unquote meaningful content. So if your free posts weren't setting the world on fire, then Facebook just didn't deliver them to people. So organic advertisers, it's important to have an organic Facebook page, don't get me wrong. I think people would find it hard to trust a business doesn't, similar to a Google My Business listing. It's just something you really should have. And there is the community management side, the messaging side, but overall, organic reach is severely stunted. Facebook claims that this is a commitment to keeping the platform for friends and family. There was a lot of the fake news discussion, which is ongoing. But a lot of people would also say that It's a lot more profitable for them to to push people towards the paid advertising side of Facebook. So looking at Facebook and Instagram in particular. So in Australia, we've got 15 million that Facebook reports can be reached with advertising. So this isn't just users, this is active users who can be reached. It's around 71% compared to the total population over the age of 13. Obviously, we can't target the under 13, minors on Facebook. They're not meant to have accounts. Their quarter-on-quarter change in reach from the end of 2019 to the start of 2020 is actually flat. So Facebook, it hasn't necessarily peaked, but it's not actively growing anymore. Roughly about 53% female, 46% male. Perhaps more interesting is Instagram. So less users can be reached, around 9.7 million compared to the 15 of Facebook, but it is still growing. So it reaches about 46% of the 13 plus population, but it has grown 4.3% compared to the previous quarter. So it's sort of been making these leaps and bounds still, which is quite impressive. And as an advertising platform, I guess the creative side of it is a lot more engaging. So looking, I guess, at what can be done with these platforms. This is a little screenshot from the start of a campaign on Facebook and Instagram. So similar to the user journey funnel, we've got these sort of three segments. So there's awareness, looking at brand awareness and reach. Consideration, so the mid-funnel, driving traffic, driving engagement, and some specialized app installs, video views, lead generation, and messages. And then the very bottom of the funnel, conversion goals. So that's looking at conversions, catalog sales, and store visits. So store visits are in-person visits. Facebook does have the ability to sort of track where users are going, or at least when they come into a certain range of your stores when they've been loaded into the system. So if you are trying to push brick and mortar sales, and it can be quite a good option. In terms of buying, so Facebook does use the standard charging method, so the cost per 1,000 impressions, the cost per click, and the cost per view if you've got a video goal. And in terms of the optimization strategy, so the sort of automated bidding strategy, there's a number of things you can optimize towards depending on your objective. So generally speaking, it'll be engagement, traffic, or conversions, unless you have a very advanced option like apps as your objective. It can get quite interesting. So in terms of apps, for example, you can look at people who are likely to install the app, or you can try and have a retention goal, which is people who are likely to open the app again after 2 days or 7 days. So if you've got an app like Menulog or Uber Eats, I should say, and you're trying to encourage people to open it up and buy again, you don't need to be optimizing towards installs necessarily because the market penetration is quite high, but you actually want to get people to be ordering regularly using that app. And so you can sort of load Facebook code into your app and actually measure how your Facebook ads achieve that specific end. In terms of audiences, so they've got what they call, so Google has 3 categories of audience. So the core audiences, the location, demographics, interest, behavior, and connections. Location, demographics, very standard. Everything you'd expect from an agency that has as much information as Facebook does. Interests and behavior, these are more built around things like the example above, so interests, entertainment, films, action films, animated films, Bollywood films. These often get quite specific, and the more specific you get, obviously the smaller the pool goes. So depending on how niche you need to be, it's better to try and stick at the top end of the funnel for reach. There's also the options for connections. And remember, all of these can also be negated. So you can look at people who like your Facebook page or who like Facebook pages of competitors even, or you can exclude people who already liked your Facebook page and are familiar with your product. In addition to that, we've got the custom audiences. So similar to Google, you can have your contact lists of phone numbers and emails. You can use site visitors or app visitors. The above example is from one of our clients where we've got this for people who submitted a form, so we can exclude them. All website traffic and people who visited specific pages over the past 180 days. So those are sort of some examples of the custom audiences based on website usage. On the right, lookalike audiences. So this is Facebook's name for similar audiences. Again, these are to do with uploading lists and having Facebook algorithmically determine who is similar people on those lists. That lookalike 81%, that's used as a measure of how similar these audiences are to the original list. So you can band them up in anywhere from 1 to 10%, and you could say in individual percentages, so 1 and then 2 and 3, or you could say 1 to 5%. And that'll determine the size of the list and the scope of it. In order for this to work, the source audience does need to contain more than 100 users. And again, that's matched users that it can actually draw information from. But they can be quite a powerful tool. So, you know, we've got existing logins, so they're existing customers, lead converters, and people from the customer list. And so we can use all of these in tandem to try and find people who are behaving similarly to our current users, but aren't. In terms of Facebook ads, so I guess the standard types, got the single image ad. These are, I guess, the most common. You've probably seen a number of times. Just a picture, big headline, big link. Carousel ad, so this allows you to put a number of different images with headlines alongside. Each of these images can go to a separate landing page. So if you have different products, then you can direct people specifically to those pages. In addition to that, there is a slideshow ad type. So if you don't have access to video, you can still make a moving ad that can grab attention a little bit better just by uploading a number of different images. So yeah, if you're able to do a slideshow, I'd probably recommend that over a static image, just because it can help grab attention, especially when someone's just scrolling through. In terms of more advanced ad types, so we've got video ad. So these can either be, sorry, there's a lot happening on this page, a sort of full page, or they can appear sort of in the news feed as previously. The collection ad, so this one's actually quite complex and interesting. So this is using Facebook's catalog feature, where you can, if you're a retailer, you can upload their products and their prices. And so in this ad, they've got a video already, and then when the ad gets clicked on, it expands into a sort of instant experience within the Facebook ad, Facebook app itself, that allows you to scroll through a selection of products, or with prices, pictures, and then you can click directly through to the landing page to purchase. There's also messenger ads on the right here. These can either be automated or manually answered. And they'd obviously be deactivated at certain times if they were manual. But when you've chosen to sort of send a message to the ad, that's when you incur the click fee. Then you can just sort of send questions through and actually engage directly with the business. In terms of placements, so these are, rather than the display definition of placement, these are the sort of Facebook and Instagram not ad formats like previously, but just the way that they can appear in the different feeds, pages, marketplace, stories. And what's good, or what's useful about Facebook and Instagram is that a single ad can be transformed into all of these placements with no extra input from the user. So we've sort of got one headline, one description, and one image, and it's assembled all these different ads for every different place that can appear. I think what's missing from here is video, because this was an image ad, but I think there's another 3 placements that could potentially be invoked with a video. For optimization, so Facebook is currently doing quite a large push around how the Facebook accounts are organized, and that advertisers are letting their accounts be optimized as much as possible. So they're leaning very heavily on machine learning. And basically what that means is that they're trying to get people to consolidate their accounts. So when an ad is created, it enters the learning phase. And to get out of this learning phase, it needs roughly 50 conversions over a 7-day period. Previously, what a lot of advertisers were doing was splitting their accounts out quite granularly, which these 50 conversions weren't getting reached. And that sort of, the graph down the bottom shows the varying conversion rate over time as the system tries, all the different placements, different ads, the different audiences, and then eventually it will sort of reach a stable cost per acquisition. What the right graph shows is per industry how much the CPA drops once the learning phase is complete. So in terms of health, drops about 9%, which is still good. If the CPA is quite high, 9% drop can be quite a boon. On average, it's around 79, 80%. Things like real estate and restaurants see the most improvement. I suspect for something like restaurants and real estate, it finds quite quickly the people who are more inclined towards certain cuisines or certain housing suburbs, housing price levels as well. So giving it the data to do this and sort of taking a step back and not interfering with the learning period is the best practice at the moment. Excuse me. One other neat feature of Facebook is the ad library. So this allows, and this is in the interests of transparency on Facebook's part, so that people can, I guess, understand the advertising that's happening. So when you first access the ad library, it defaults to political ads. So this is all around, fake news and the sort of defamatory negative ads that often come out of the political cycle. But you can actually just view all ads from all businesses. And once you've searched for a Facebook page, you can see the ads that they've been running. You can see when the ad started running. You can see the placement. So this example here is Westpac. And you can see they've started running the ad on the left on the 6th of October, the 2 on the right on the 4th. The top right shows that they're using Facebook and Instagram placements, but they're not using audience network placements. The one on the left has multiple versions, so there's 3 different ads using the same creative and text. So they've got one creative across different ad groups, while the 2 on the right have only been used in one ad group. So you can actually, I guess, discern quite a lot about a competitor's strategy, or at least about their I guess, approach to creative and targeting in terms of networks through this tool. So I'll include a link to this in the PowerPoint, but it is very interesting how publicly available they've made what their advertisers are doing in terms of their posts. Moving on to LinkedIn. So behind Facebook, LinkedIn is the biggest social network, actually. 11 million, so still above Instagram. However, unlike Instagram, it's not growing anymore. it's got 56% of the population over 18. So again, like Facebook and Instagram, it's over 18 or over 13. Higher male proportion than Instagram and Facebook, around 54.5% compared to 45.5. And looking at what we've got in terms of the objectives and measurement for LinkedIn, so very similar, less options, but awareness, consideration, conversions, again, we're looking at like the full breadth of the funnel there. The one thing that you'll notice is different is the job applicants conversion. So that's using LinkedIn's sort of built-in job features to sort of, I guess, match companies up with prospects, as that's what they've got the most third-party data on to provide you with. The buying model. So again, LinkedIn uses standard charging methods of CPM and CPC. And then they also have a bespoke cost per send for their message ads. The optimization strategy depends on the campaign objective. So primary categories are awareness, consideration, and conversions. And then we've got the about applications optimization as well. And the goal will change along with what we're aiming for. And bidding strategy, these three might seem, the first two might seem quite similar. It's either trying to use the full entered budget and get the most results possible, or using a target cost while staying near a certain cost per return. In terms of the difference here, a lot of that is to do with the pace at which it will spend and how much it's willing to, I guess, test different optimization options. Generally speaking, maximum delivery is the best option, but target cost can be better if you already understand what your return is likely to be on the platform. Manual bidding also exists, not really recommended on a social network, again, unless you have a wealth of data of your own to draw upon with which to optimize towards. Looking at audiences within LinkedIn. So again, like a lot of these are very focused around employment, obviously. So the job experience, function seniority, title, skills, years experience, a company name, industry, size, growth rate, category. So, a lot of this is very heavily built towards either B2B or recruiting. But there's things like education as well. So universities or specific certificate providers, interests and traits and demographics. Interests don't figure too much into LinkedIn advertising usually. Education, job experience, and company are the USPs that the platform has. For the ad types, got sponsored content. So that's the very sort of news feedy ad. They've just decided to call it sponsored content. Big image, description text, link. Carousel, similar to Facebook, multiple images, each can lead to an individual landing page. Dynamic ads. So these ones are a bit interesting because they will invoke the user's sort of picture and name and try and really grab attention that way. I find them quite, I guess, noticeable. And yeah, so being able to put in the CTA, like request demo, contact now, whatever it might be, and really like personally match up to a user is quite a powerful thing. In terms of the video and advanced types, there's the standard video. Again, just a sort of newsfeed ad feature in the video, so you can either click to play the video or click through to the website. A message ad. So this one is is paid for upon send. And yeah, will appear in users' inboxes based on your targeting preferences. and a conversation ad, which sort of appears as a chat message and has inbuilt, I guess, responses. They can go to different links. So that's LinkedIn. So we'll just quickly have a chat around what I like to call the 3R strategies. So I sort of define these based on hypothetical scenarios for the companies and what they might be wanting to do with social and display. So the first R is reach. So the scenario is as an established business, it's got a bit of money in its pockets. It's launched a brand new product and it wants as many people as possible to see their ads. So their strategy is to buy ads on a cost per 1,000 impressions basis to achieve the most eyeballs per dollar spent. So they're not here to right now to worry about who's clicking through or who's ultimately spending all this time on the website. They just want maximum market penetration. They're going to just pay to get the ad out there. They're going to use the systems to limit the frequency of unique viewers. So on Facebook, you can use the reach objective, which says, I want as many unique users as possible to see my ad. So it's not just about impressions, it's about unique viewers. Same on GDN, you can choose to limit multiple impressions from the same viewer. And they're going to use a very wide variety of appropriate placements to reach different segments of their potential audience. So there's not going to be very little limitation based on where these ads are going to appear. And they're going to exclude existing customers and site visitors. So they want new people. They don't want people who are already engaged with their brand. They're going to use their customer list to say these ones have already seen this. Once they've seen the ad, once they've clicked through, we don't want paying for them to see it again. We want to pay for someone new. So on the right, we've got the little graph of potential users to conversion likelihood. So because they're just going out there, they're getting their ad as far into the wilderness as possible. Conversion likelihood's actually quite low. It's a very shotgun scattergun approach, but the potential users is very high. So they're getting a lot of awareness, they're getting a lot of interest, and that's how they're reaching these. So their ultimate objective is actually going to be based on impressions and unique viewers. So the second R is relevancy. So the scenario here is a medium-sized business. They're looking to expand their user base while still remaining relevant to the new audience. So their strategy is to buy ads on a CPC basis because they want to ensure that they are driving quality traffic, they're driving engaged new customers. They're going to be using third-party audiences to find new users who are in market or interested in their product set. So if we're looking on the GDN, they're going to be using the in-market audiences to the custom audiences to say, okay, well, what's our product? What people are out there who are interested in buying what we're currently selling, not just people who generally could be good, who might be demographically relevant, but people who are actually actively researching right now. In addition to that, they can use their similar and lookalike audiences on display and Facebook, and base those on their existing sets of customers and site visitors. In particular, they're going to take their converting site visitors and their high-value customers, their repeat customers, and say, all right, well, these ones are the most engaged with our product, so we're going to find people who are algorithmically similar to those specific existing users. On the right, so the conversion likelihood is a lot better. They put a lot more effort into finding users who are going to engage quite well. And the use of third-party audiences and similar audiences is a little bit less than just going hell for leather, but still quite a decent pool of potential users. The final R is re-engagement. So the scenario here is there's a business selling fast-moving consumer good products, and it just wants to retain their existing customers. It wants to encourage, second buying. Sorry, I think there's a mistaken sentence in there, but their strategy is to buy ads on a CPC basis. So that's to push for site visits and conversions. So they want that traffic coming through, and more than just traffic, they want people to come through and convert. So they're fast moving consumer goods. So they want to find people who know their product and like their product. They're going to upload lists of existing customers and target those who haven't made a purchase in the previous 6 months. and just try and get them back in. Similarly, they'll target users who have visited the site for more than 3 minutes and not purchased, or who've added an item to their cart and didn't purchase. So no matter where these people might be browsing, they might be browsing Facebook, they might be browsing the news. They'll hopefully be served a display ad just to remind them that they've been on this website, they're interested, would they like to come back? And they can also use dynamic ads to show the specific products that have been viewed previously, just to really sort of close the deal there. So in our graph, we can see that the potential users is extremely low. We're targeting existing customers, we're specifically targeting existing customers, specifically targeting people who've been to the website. So the pool is very small, but they're highly engaged, they're highly aware, they've shown their interest, the conversion likelihood is very high. So those are sort of the I guess, 3 main strategies that you can use as foundations for any social or display campaign after that, and sort of change based on where you need to be on that reach to conversion volume graph. Yeah, so thanks very much for joining me this afternoon. If you've got any sort of follow-up questions, either shoot them through in the Q&A now, or you can email me or Gary later on. And the presentation will be made available later this week. Great. All right, thanks everyone. Have a good afternoon.